Good evening and welcome to the Commack Council of PTAs Meet the Candidates Night. I am Nicole Perez, President of Council, and on behalf of myself and my Executive Board, I thank you for tuning into the event. Tonight's forum will be moderated by Council. I will serve as moderator and Diana Michelle will be the timekeeper. I thank the community for submitting questions in advance, and I thank my Council officers for their help in putting this together. We received over 120 questions and did our best to cultivate 18 questions that best represent what is on the mind of the community. I'd like to present the candidates for the Commack Board of Education. For one seat, we have incumbent Mr. Steve Hartman and challenger Ms. Pauline Fidalgo. For another seat, we have incumbent Mr. Justin Varghese and challenger Mr. Christopher Yurkovich. Both seats will serve for 3 years. I thank you, the candidates, for participating in this event and allowing us to ask questions important to the community so that we may be informed voters on May 17th. About tonight's format, each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes to make a presentation stating qualifications and reasons for running. Then I will proceed with questions. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer each question. No rebuttals are allowed. This is not a debate. Finally, each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to make a closing statement after the last question has been answered. Candidates may use their closing remarks to make rebuttals if they wish. Opening presentations will be in alphabetical order by last name. Closing statements will be in reverse alphabetical order by last name. I will do my best to alternate who gets to answer a question first. The candidates were not advised of our questions ahead of time. So let's get started. Ms. Fidalgo, you have 3 minutes to provide opening remarks.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Pauline Fidalgo, and I'd like to thank the PTA Council for organizing this event. I want to start off by saying I'm a first-generation American. My parents and in-laws were born in Portugal and immigrated to the United States for a better life, opportunity, and the American dream. I graduated from Hofstra University with a bachelor's in Spanish, and I speak both Portuguese and Spanish and use it in my home. I got married to my husband, in 2000 and moved to Commack for the excellent reputation of the school district with my husband and children in 2007. I hope that after this evening, the community can have a better understanding of who I am and what I can do to continue the success of the district, but also what I can do to the district in the years ahead, starting with a fresh perspective. I'm a strong supporter of public education. I recently found out that my daughter will graduate a full year early due to the college classes and wonderful education that she received at the Commack School District. My son is finishing the first year of the construction electricity program at Western Suffolk BOCES, which I know is being promoted greatly in our district. And I'm grateful that all the opportunities that my children have had, although they have very different strengths. As a legal assistant for over 17 years, I have gained excellent communication skills, decision-making, and organizational skills. As a board member of the Long Island Portuguese American Center, I learned firsthand how difficult it was to navigate finances during the pandemic and beyond. As a Zumba instructor for over 10 years, I was able to bring people together, lead them with incredible energy, and create a sense of community that permeated outside of the studio or gym. I was fortunate to have led participants at the Commack Relay for Life as they fought to stay awake in the wee hours of the morning, which helped raise funds for cancer research. I was also a member of the Wear Purple for Joey D team, which collaboratively raised almost $20,000 for cancer research that year. For the last year, I've been advocating and educating parents to have a stronger voice with regards to medical decisions for their children. The pandemic has definitely opened the eyes of many parents and how little they really know of what's happening at times in the school district with regards to their child's classroom. Parents, I strongly believe, are the key to the continued success of this district, allowing transparency and clear communication in the community, making sure that we've informed parents that are active participants in their child's education, together with a board, faculty, and staff that work collaboratively to ensure that each child's needs are being met and nurtured for healthy and successful children. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Hartman, you have 3 minutes to provide opening remarks.
Hello, I'm Steve Hartman, Commack Board President. I'd like to thank the PTA for hosting the Meet the Candidate Night. I'm so blessed to have my supporting and loving wife, Doreen, for almost 27 years, and my 2 children, Daniel and Emily. I started attending board meetings back in the wee old days of 2009. After many years of attending numerous in-person meetings and educating myself on what a school board member is, I ran for a vacant seat in 2013 and was elected. I was vice president for the first 2 years and been the current president for 7 years. I've been part of a variety of community focus groups. I chair the Legislative Advocacy Committee. I'm a proud PTA member for over 18 years. I was involved in the Cub Scouts as assistant Cub master and then leader, and Boy Scouts of America, including community committee member, and still serve as a merit badge counselor. I am mentored for the science research program and attend career days at both the middle school and high school to discuss engineering. I work full-time as an engagement director for a medical device company, which I oversee a large staff of engineers to help develop novel cutting-edge products and maintain multi-million-dollar projects and budgets. The chief role of a board member is to ensure fiscal stability of our district's resources, policy review, and advocacy for a local school district. Here are 3 examples of how I worked on these cornerstones. Fiscal stability is achieved through working on a multi-year plan to ensure both the short and long-term goals are met. Our district continues to allow for program growth and smaller class sizes. I worked with collective bargaining agreements throughout my 9 years. When I became a trustee, I noticed that most of our policies were out of date. We have fully updated all our policies, and now we have a process to update and review them regularly. We formed the Legislative Advocacy Committee. We need to be seen as advocates for public education. The committee has created numerous platforms that have been well received by legislators. Our platforms include state aid, local control, school safety, mental health, and alternative pathways. Our work on the committee culminated with bullet aid from Senator Gorin of $100,000 for a mock trial classroom. I will continue to advocate for parents, children, and teachers. Parents should never feel pressured by others, whether it be testing, classes, or other school-related activities. I've advocated for all children on every level, supporting their needs and providing the support that they need. I will continue to act in a respectful manner as I've done in the past 9 years. I am personally so proud of this district and what we have accomplished over these many years, implementing STEM, achieving the Blue Ribbon schools in the high school, and increased enrollment in BOCES, and adding enrichment for all and movement in the arts at the elementary levels. I look forward to working with administrators, teachers, students, and community to explore new areas of growth, such that all students can achieve their full potential. Our community needs proven leaders that supports social, emotional, mental, and physical needs of our students and staff, so they can continue working in a caring environment that encourages everyone to do their best. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yurkovich, you have 3 minutes to provide opening remarks.
Okay. Greetings, parents, students, faculty, and the PTA of the Commack Schools community. My name is Chris Yurkovich. I'm a father of 2 young children in the district and a young independent candidate who would like to represent you as a member of the Board of Education. To tell you who I am as a person, my story always starts with my heritage. I was raised in a large, extended family of Croatian immigrants who fled the former socialist nation of Yugoslavia to give my generation and our children the opportunity to freely practice our culture and religion in this great country. My upbringing gave me great pride in my roots, which are a big part of my life to this day. It also gave me a unique appreciation of what it is to be a proud American. In my professional life, it is my job to juggle the needs of my management team, field workers, unions, and OSHA regulations to produce a product that leaves all parties satisfied. I believe this experience has prepared me to deal with any discrepancies between or among the parents, faculty, students, and community at large. Regarding why I'm here tonight, it is because I believe in parental inclusion in the education process and enhancing the involvement of all parties who feel their voice are not heard. I believe no matter how far apart we are on, I believe no matter how far apart some of us may be on any given issue, that there is always a way to come together. If you are part of this community, I will commit to solutions that leave all of us fulfilled. I believe in our wonderful teachers who have guided Commack schools to an extraordinary level of academic excellence. I will strive to continue this tradition by helping us adapt to our changing world. I believe in our children, but we must recognize that they have been set back by the pandemic, and we need new leadership who will think on their feet and not be afraid to make the tough decisions. Another reason I'm here tonight is because other potential candidates were discouraged from running, and I believe the democratic process should always provide us with a choice. I look forward to your questions and hope to provide adequate answers that may give you more clarity about what I can bring to the table. If you would like to learn more about me, I will be at Mario's Pizza on Vanderbilt Parkway from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on May 10th. And remember, as Gandhi once said, you cannot shake hands with a clenched fist. So I choose to extend my open hand for us all to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Varghese, you have 3 minutes to provide opening remarks.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Justin Varghese, and I also want to thank the PTA for organizing this, as well as to the other candidates for being here. It's so important to be able to talk about what's near to us and why we want to serve our community in this way. So this is a really great opportunity. I've been living in Commack for about 16 years now. My wife, Sherry, and I have 2 amazing boys in the district. I've served on the Board of Education for the last 3 years. And I'm a practicing trial attorney. We've been involved in the PTA for many years. I've had the opportunity to serve on committees in the district, most recently the Multicultural Committee that's organizing really this amazing event that we have coming up this coming Saturday. And I've coached so many teams for my boys over the years in soccer and basketball, and giving our energy towards meeting the needs of those less fortunate is something that's very near to my heart and to that of my family. So we've spent a lot of our energy over the years just organizing and participating in charity drives and giving our lives and energy to that. So, I believe we're all here because we love Commack and we care deeply about the students in our district, and we all want what's best for them. So it's good to talk about how each of us believes we can get there. Now, like I said, I've been glad to serve on the Board of Education for the last 3 years. I found it to be challenging, but also so rewarding and really an honor to give countless hours and energy for the good of our town. I've had the opportunity to work with other board members and staff and administrators who don't always see eye to eye, and yet I've counted it a privilege to be able to work with and walk alongside those that I might even disagree with and find that common ground, that middle ground, seeking the best of our district. I've had the opportunity to negotiate with many units of teachers and administrators and aides and others who are a huge part of what make our schools so special. And I've had the opportunity to cultivate relationships with the community and with students and with so many others. So really, I'm here because now I'm eager to just continue this forward progress of growing together. So I'm eager to see us as a community, as a district, continue growing opportunities for all students. I've seen it. I've seen the expansion of programs in special ed and the vocational opportunities through Wilson Tech and other Cisco trainings and all of that. And I've seen the IB career pathways that are going to be available next year and the IB AP programs, which of course are phenomenal. So I want to continue to provide support for all our kids, academically, socially, emotionally, in every way, ultimately seeking to help them discover their passions and prepare them for life beyond K-12. Thank you.
Thank you all. I will now begin asking questions. Question 1, can you explain the responsibilities of a school board member and what expertise you have to fulfill those responsibilities? Mr. Hartman, we'll start with you.
So the chief role of a school board member is fiscal governance. As mentioned before, it really comes down to working at the budget and understanding the nuances associated with how large our budget is. It is $214 million budget in Commack itself. Most of it is really resources of the people. It is a people-driven business. And really you need to understand that and have intricacies on what the budget means, what it's made of, and all the details associated with it, and give feedback, constructive feedback on how we can improve. Again, we represent the whole community itself, right? We want to make sure that our students are succeeding in every way possible. In addition, we work with our superintendent, right, on a day in and day out basis to make sure that he or she is doing what the board sees as our goals. Those are our missions at a high level, what we need to do throughout the whole year. Our goals are set in August, and every board meeting we walk through our goals, make sure we're following that. And lastly is policy and advocacy work that we do on a day in and day out basis for our students and for our community at large.
Mr. Yurkovich, your turn.
Excuse me. Yes, I think that the purpose of the school board is essentially driven by managing the budget, and it's a big responsibility. And I think we also need to facilitate conversations between all stakeholders in the community and let us all know where our tax dollars go. And just to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to be doing for our students each day. And to make sure that we have transparency in the budget, and that and also that the allocation of our resources can sometimes be more important than the amounts that we're dealing with.
Thank you. Mr. Varghese, your turn.
So really the most fundamental role of a board member are in 2 or 3 areas. It has to do with setting policy for the district, 30,000-foot large-scale goal setting for the district, and making sure that the district is functioning in a way that is fiscally responsible. Now, I think that the beauty and the importance of being an elected position is that we also serve as a liaison to the community as it relates to all of those things. So that's not separate. It's as it relates to policy making, as it relates to fiscal responsibility, as it relates to goal setting, being able to connect with the community, help bring people together, all the different views that might exist within our community, and work together to be able to cultivate really the finest educational experience possible for all of the kids in our district at every level.
Ms. Fidalgo, your turn.
Can you just repeat the question, please? I'm sorry.
Sure. Can you explain the responsibilities of a school board member and what expertise you have to fulfill those responsibilities?
Okay, thank you. I think that the responsibilities of board member are obviously vast. I think that I come from a different place than some of the people that are on the board now and are running for a Board of Education. I'm a treasurer at the Portuguese American Center. I know that the budget may not be as vast as the one of the Commack district, but I did work closely with them during the pandemic and beyond to make sure that we were, crossing our T's and dotting our I's. I think, as Mr. Varghese said, also was a very important part is being a liaison between the community and the parents and the school district, like all stakeholders, whether it be the teachers and the students, just making sure that everyone has a clean line of communication and ensuring that everyone's voices are being heard and accepted and understood, and to be able to help as many people as we can, both, again, faculty, staff, as well as the community.
Thank you. Just a note to all the candidates, obviously, if you need me to repeat a question, please do like Ms. Fidalgo did, just feel free when it's your turn. Question 2, a main part of a BOE member's job is to oversee the budget. What is your impression of this year's proposed budget, and do you have suggested changes to the budget? Mr. Yurkovich, your turn.
Well, to be honest, the budget workshop was not available on the website when I was trying to go over this myself. But I'd just like to reiterate the point of what I said before, that we need to encourage more transparency and access for all parties to understand what is actually going on. And that's really all I can say as far as the budget is concerned right now, because I was not able to get access to it.
Thank you. Mr. Varghese, your turn.
Yeah, well, so much goes into developing the budget each year. And part of it doesn't all happen in May before this election. I mean, so in the months and sometimes in the years before our budget's developed, there's contractual obligations that go with the many units that I mentioned earlier that make our district so great. So we're trying to develop a budget that honors, of course, all of those contracts and then uses the funds in the wisest way possible. So one thing I would say as far as ever improving the budget, it's something that needs to improve every year. And that happens by paying careful attention to how effectively funds are being used in a given year. So from last year's budget, we have to really closely examine the efficiencies, the inefficiencies, and this is so much of what the board spends its time doing, understanding efficiencies and inefficiencies from a previous budget so that we can make adjustments accordingly. So we were able to do that from this budget as compared to last year's, and my hope is that next year's budget will be even more efficient than the last one, because it will keep improving year after year.
Thank you. Ms. Fidalgo, your turn.
With regards to the budget, I know that we're not it's my understanding that the board members don't actually create the budget, but they obviously review it and they question it and they identify issues that may, identify line items that could be maybe a savings in some way or help some of the such as the SEPTA department. All the departments have to be looked at, I guess, on a line item basis. And I'm hoping that being able to get on the board, I'd be allowed to see as a fresh perspective, to look at the items carefully to make sure that there's nothing that can be allocated to help certain, again, either departments or places where we can save. So I think it's important to, again, be able to look at them, be able to ask questions about it, and to be able to ensure that all the funds that are allocated to the different departments are being used fiscally responsibly.
Mr. Hartman, your turn.
Thank you. Well, the budget really comes out from a multi-year planning perspective. So it's not just this year, it's looking at the totality of every year and how we're summing up, looking to see trends, what's going on in the district itself. That really is key. One of the things we did back when I started the board is that we wanted to make sure that our facilities are being updated and kept up into a fashion. We realized that we had to create a savings area whereby we put money aside, and then each year we put money aside into that account. Then we told the taxpayers, we're going to create a zero cost bond to you for $66 million of updates, whereby there's no increase to your taxes. That multi-year planning is kind of critical to making sure that there's less burden on the taxpayers itself. In addition, we have our budget hearing coming up, which is tomorrow, which allows the community the opportunity to ask additional questions on the budget. We had 3 budget workshops, and we also had our informal budget hearing where we allowed people to ask questions. So certainly we invite people to come to that meeting tomorrow to send questions online to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 3. A school board trustee has to balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to the taxpayer burden. As a board member, where would you look to make budget cuts, and what would you consider off limits to budget cuts? Mr. Varghese, you're first.
Yeah, that's a good question, because there truly are so many moving pieces to creating a budget that is as efficient as possible. I would say one of the most important things that should never get cut are programs that are bringing the most benefit to the students. So as I said earlier, we have to constantly be looking every year, 1 year at a time, to see if the funds are being used efficiently and the students are getting the most benefit, because this budget is for our children. So we would take a look at various programs. If something needed to be cut, it would be something that either the students are not benefiting from, perhaps the students are not utilizing. Because there's so much creativity in our district, there's a lot of great ideas that come to the forefront and then get funded so that we can give them a try. But if we find that something is not effective, then that's the type of thing that would need to be adjusted, and invest that money into what is effective and what is working best.
Ms. Fidalgo, your turn. Oh, you're on mute.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. A school board trustee has to balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to taxpayer burden. As a board member, where would you look to make budget cuts, and what would you consider off limits to budget cuts?
Okay. I think with regards to off limits is, again, anything that's going to adversely affect the education or well-being of our children. With regards to any maybe not contracts, if there was opportunity for different programs that are being brought in where they're outside vendors, possibly look at those items where, maybe you're hiring someone to come for an event and you can get a little bit of a less of a price on something, as maybe something as easy as a DJ or something, things like those things of those nature, where you might be able to save a little bit on these little items will eventually lead to a bigger savings overall, I think.
Thank you. Mr. Hartman, your turn.
Certainly, as you discussed things off limits, it certainly comes down to the students themselves. And we looked at areas whereby we can create synergy from classes. Like an example, in the high school, we had a Latin class, and we basically saw that if we actually potted them all together in different classes together, we actually have to save those classes, put them together to actually learn and develop to keep those classes alive. But there are certain cost drivers that happen in the district that we really need to be mindful of. One of them is health insurance. Every year in our district, health insurance basically outstrips our tax cap every year, day in and day out. So we need to look at areas where we're being cost effective. One of those areas we did last year, again, was we looked at an alternative health insurance plan through the administration, whereby it actually lowered and saved the district over $1 million. In addition, we offered retirement incentives almost every year to the various bargaining units. That allows us to have teachers who are on the edge of thinking about retiring, maybe take that additional incentive to go, and it allows us to further burden the budget onto the taxpayers themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Yurkovich, your turn.
I'd like to start off by saying that in regard to the budget, I would try to learn from the other board members, being a young new candidate. I would also look into the facilities management and possibly see if there's anything that we could change or update in that fashion where we'd be able to save money for the district as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 4. How will you support the specific needs of Commack students if or when your personal beliefs conflict with the mandates from the state? Ms. Fidalgo, you're first. You're on
mute.
Sorry. Can you rephrase the question, please? I'm not sorry, rephrase. I'm sorry, ask the question again. My apologies.
How will you support the specific needs of Commack students if or when your personal beliefs conflict with any mandates from the state?
I think when making decisions as a board member, I would always consider the needs of the community and children as a whole and work collaboratively to ensure that all parents and children's opinions are heard and considered. I support every parent's choice to make medical decisions for their children. And I was grateful for the opportunity over the past year to support those parents. But again, I do believe that everyone's voices and input should be heard. And I believe that I'm able to decipher between what's best for the community and what's best for myself as a person.
Mr. Hartman, your turn.
Certainly, mandates have been a big thing throughout the past couple of decades here in New York State. We've had unfunded mandates even related to the Common Core, which we basically, as Commack, really fought hard against and really pushed back on the state to say, listen, Commack can do things differently and do things in a way that really helps our students learn and grow. So there's a lot of different mandates out there. We need to be mindful of what does it affect each student, each parent, and each person individually. Each parent should have their own choice to understand what is the impact of that mandate, and the board needs to work with the administration and the community as a whole, basically put forth a program that makes sure that the students are in a safe and learning environment.
Mr. Yurkovich, your turn.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How will you support the specific needs of Commack students if or when your personal beliefs conflict with the mandates from the state?
Okay. To be honest, I believe that our personal beliefs should be independent from our jobs as members of the board. So that really hits at part of the reason why I feel like I'm here tonight. So I think that putting the students' needs first is always the priority. And I think we should look at policies that would help us continue to do so and continue to always put the needs of the children first. And I feel like my personal views would not be relevant in the face of what's best for children, because my personal views are that we should always do what's best for children, even if it's not 100% in line what I would do in my home. I would always want children to have what's best for them.
Thank you. Mr. Varghese?
Yeah, I would say that, a focus on the students obviously is the #1 priority. So, part of what you get when you elect a board member is, of course, you get a person that has views, that has a personality, that has values, but the focus can't be on that individual's values and opinions and passions solely. It has to be what is best for the district as a whole. So what I would do is advocate for the students. If there's a state mandate that somehow didn't align with what this community wanted, well, then part of what a board does is advocacy. That's the reason why the Legislative Advocacy Committee exists. And I would encourage parents and families to advocate for what they believe in to Albany, to state legislators as they feel it's appropriate. But it's the beauty of our democracy that we have the ability to do that. But if there's a state mandate for the school, we would have to follow it.
Thank you. Question 5. Describe or discuss any experience you have had working to build consensus or collaboration between two opposing groups or members of a community. Mr. Hartman, you're first.
So one of the areas I like to touch upon is the man called property, right? So as many people know, for the past 50 years, we've had a piece of farmland, about 9 acres in the district, whereby different people coming up with different ideas to what we're going to do with that area. When we came on the board, we still had other opportunities from outside people looking at it, but we said, let's form a committee formed of the whole community itself, whereby we took in different inputs and listened to the different areas. What do we want to do with that? How will it fit her covenants of the will? What's best for the community as a whole? What's best for the students and everyone all together? And lo and behold, after working with it for a year, we came upon LIU, who basically worked with the school district to take part of the land. And now we have a thriving veterinary school on board at the district itself. In addition, we have an area where we have a bee area, bee apiary, where the bees are actually being culminated and collected there for honey in the future. And we have a beekeeping club in the middle school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Yurkovich, your turn.
Well, I stated earlier that this is part of my job. What I do at work is I deal with field workers and a management team. And I also deal with unions. And all 3 of these different factions are often showing different, they have different objectives, okay? And we need to form a consensus constantly to continue working and keeping all the parties functioning properly in order for our business to make money, in order for our union to be happy, in order for our field workers to feel that they're represented and that they're in a proper working environment. And that is my role each and every day. So I think that in any situation that would come up here, it would be right in my wheelhouse.
Mr. Varghese, your turn.
So it's not an easy thing, but I do believe that bringing people together is one of my strengths, one of the things that actually caused me to really thrive and I feel passionate about. So as an attorney, I've had the opportunity to mediate between parties. So I'm uninvolved in the case and been able to mediate 2 parties and bring them together, help see one another's perspectives and actually walk toward each other. My wife and I have had the opportunity in various church settings to provide counseling, marriage counseling, different things like that. These are all different situations where 2 people with opposing viewpoints can come together. And as a board, it's something that we have to navigate quite frequently. I love the fact that our community is becoming more and more engaged. And what we're starting to hear are different voices with different opinions. And I think that is just objectively good if we learn how to walk toward one another and how to bring people together. It's not an easy thing, but I believe it can be done.
Ms. Fidalgo, your turn.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Describe or discuss any experience you have had working to build consensus or collaboration between 2 opposing groups or members of a community.
Okay, as a president of the Portuguese folk dance group for 3 years, it was in Farmingville, I dealt with weekly parents and children, young and old in numerous age groups with different concerns or complaints. And I was always able to diffuse it and get all the parents and children to realize that ultimately, we want to work together as a group, perform well, and do well and make sure that we have a good showing in our community. It was a very difficult task, but I definitely was able to mediate and allow these people to come together and have great performances. I know that a few months ago, also at a meeting, at a Board of Education meeting, I also was with a woman that, again, had a different viewpoint than me. And at the end of the evening, we were exchanging information about our different points and were able to come together for a common good.
Thank you. Question 6. What would you do to improve transparency about board decisions, policies, and district information? And how would you improve communication between community members and the board? Mr. Yurkovich, you're first.
I think the primary thing here is just to have everything available, to make sure the information is all available, whatever meetings we have. I know obviously most of them are posted on the district website, but maybe we could start an email notification chain to make sure that all the parents who are in the district and all the community members would be able to see what's going on at all times and just have ready access, even maybe when they're not looking for it. So that's what I would say.
Mr. Varghese, your turn.
So I would say that I'm glad for some of the things that we currently have available, the live streaming, various opportunities for people to share email addresses availability, but I 100% feel like we do need more. We need more opportunities, more spaces for people to have respectful dialogue. And so no matter what the topic is of where there might be some disagreement in our community about a given topic, whether, related to the school district, of course, creating some space for that, for us to have respectful dialogue, I think is tremendously, tremendously important. It's not easy to do, to be able to create an environment like that. But if we can treat each other with dignity and be willing to really hear each other, I think that's one of the most important things a board can do, create the space for that. So you always know what a board is doing every step of the way through every decision that's being made.
Ms. Fidalgo, your turn.
Thank you. I think if I was elected, I'd like to create the board meetings where people are welcome, obviously acknowledged, their viewpoints are considered, so we can grow as individuals in a community. I'd like to have the idea of having possibly a little bit of an open forum initially, where the parents and families can congregate a little bit before the Board of Education meetings started. I think that would give a little bit of a breaking of the ice, I guess, kind of sense, where people can kind of say, oh, these are the people that are going to be here. We're going to chit chat. We're going to talk a little bit. But ultimately, when you get to the table and you're asking questions, that you're going to, again, that all people's opinions should be considered and viewpoints should be considered, and find a way to be able to find a common ground for the people that might be on an opposing side. It's a very difficult task, I'm sure, but it's something that I think I could excel at, finding common ground between two different viewpoints and allowing more open communication during the meetings themselves.
Mr. Hartman.
So during my tenure on the board, we actually started the whole live streaming videotaping process, because they asked someone to come out on a Thursday evening at 8 o'clock at night. It's a lot for people to ask for. So we also give them the ability to send in questions so they can get answered in a fashion whereby they're answered at the board meeting and get responded to currently at the board meeting itself. We're answering questions during the meetings. We've also created a Commack Facebook group out there so people can see what is going on in the community itself. We had a Commack app out there that was utilized before the pandemic, and certainly want to look at revitalizing that app again to get push notifications to the parents so they can see what's going on. We've instituted the Be in the Know emails, which is updates from the Board of Education of what's going on in our district itself. And lastly, with the new superintendent, Dr. Cox, I want to bring back our focus groups. That was something really pivotal that we had before COVID. Those focus groups don't have to be in schools. They can be wherever we want. They could be outside on the farm. They could be any place we want, but we need to get people together to grow a consensus of what is most important to this community itself.
Thank you. Question 7. How should tense or disrespectful exchanges at a board meeting be handled? And what is your experience handling similar or such exchanges? Mr. Varghese.
Well, I would say an initial thing would be to try to calmly and respectfully take down the temperature. I think that things get heated because people are passionate. It's rightfully so. They're passionate about what's near to them. So it's not a matter of shutting the door on their passion. It's a matter of trying to create space or try to turn down the temperature such so that people can actually hear one another. So I do have a tremendous amount of experience in this, certainly in my field in the law and in many other environments, just trying to help people take a step back and try to hear from one another. That said, if people continue to treat one another disrespectfully, there's an element of protection that also exists, protecting those who are maybe being victimized to some extent by someone talking to them in a way that's rude or that doesn't maintain their dignity. So there's a tension there, I think, trying to create safe space, but also protecting the integrity of the meeting and the people that are there.
Thank you. Ms. Fidalgo.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How should tense or disrespectful exchanges at a board meeting be handled, and what is your experience handling such or similar exchanges?
I think as a board member of the Long Island Portuguese American Center, I have encountered that as well. I think, again, it's a matter of allowing people to speak respectfully to each other, and when necessary, intervene in a sense and try to see if we can find, again, a commonality or allow people to understand that a difference of opinion is okay, but that we're not always going to agree, but we just always need to continue to be respectful of each other. I've never had to actually remove anyone from a meeting, but again, I think really just calming the points down, making sure that people are being heard and acknowledged, so that this way they can feel that their voice is heard and that we can continue the meeting, peacefully and with respect of other people.
Mr. Hartman.
Thank you. So, as you know, there's been some meetings in the past, not just in Commack, but throughout the nation, whereby some of these meetings have gotten, contentious. People have certainly some concerns. They're bringing it up, and basically it's their passion that's driving them to these meetings. So we want to make sure they're heard in a respectful way. They may have some issue or complaint that's going on. So after the meeting, personally, I've actually gone up to people, talked to them, said, listen, I hear you, I understand you. Try to explain some more of the details. I said, hey, let's sit down. Let's go to the local Panera. Let's understand really what is troubling you. What can we get resolved? So basically, it's usually something based that they're not getting the result that they see, right? Could be their child, could be something in the, much larger than that. So really, you got to create that environment where you listen to people, understand what's going on, and create that space for differences, and make sure that you follow up and take action. That's one of the key things as a board member I do, that really I hear the issue, I bring it back to the superintendent and to the entire board, and make sure something is done, and I follow up with them accordingly.
Thank you. Mr. Yurkovich.
Could you repeat the question again?
How should tense or disrespectful exchanges at a board meeting be handled? And what is your experience handling such or similar exchanges?
Well, I think those are two separate questions, because a tense engagement is different than disrespectful. I mean, I don't think that any of us should really tolerate disrespectful speech to anyone. I mean, that's not something that any of us want to see. But when it comes to tense engagements, I think it's important to minimize the temperature of the room, and also really listen to what has got these people riled up, or what's got somebody hot. I mean, if they're coming to a school board meeting and they're upset about something or speaking very strongly in a respectful manner, then I think we always need to understand what their concerns are as members of the board.
Thank you. Question 8. Describe PTA's relationship with the Board of Ed and how you would foster that relationship. Ms. Fidalgo.
Thank you. I think it's extremely important, obviously, for the PTA to be in communication with the board. I know that I heard, I believe it was Ms. Michelle's speech at I believe it was the March Board of Ed meeting, and it's incredible what the PTA does for our community and for our schools and for our children. And I think a good line of communication is extremely important, because the programs that they have, the arts and ed, I still remember, the things that my children had the opportunity to get or see because of all the programs that the PTA does, as well as the SEPTA PTA. So I think it is very important to keep an open line of communication. I think it's the only way to be able to allow all these programs and all these wonderful things that the PTA does for our children.
Mr. Hartman.
So I've been attending PTA meetings and PTA council meetings since I've been on the board itself. And what I've seen is a group of volunteers, some of the board members, which are dedicated to one thing, dedicated to working for the best for the students themselves. And what does it include? They have a nutrition committee, photography, arts and ed, blood drives, scholarships, all those different facets. They are the eyes and ears of what's going on in our schools. And certainly we welcome to hear their feedback to understand what's working in our buildings and what's not working with our buildings. I know they also have the ability to work with the superintendent themselves to kind of say, hey, we heard there's something going on here that we really want you to take a look at. Please give us the feedback. And we work together synergistically, right? With the parents, with the teachers, all together to make sure that our students are getting the best experience possible.
Mr. Yurkovich, your turn.
I think it's a very important thing to involve the PTA with the BOE because the parents, this is what I'm all about. I think that we need to include everybody in the process, and that's parents, teachers, board, superintendent, and students themselves. So cultivating a good working relationship between the board and the PTA is paramount in the success of the district.
Thank you. Mr. Varghese.
Yeah, there's really no way that 5 board members can truly have their ear to the ground and really understand fully what it is that the students need. And this is why the voice of the PTA is so incredibly important. The parents and the PTAs are the ones who have their kids in the buildings. They have their ear to the ground. They know what's working and what's not working. It's amazing to me the amount of energy the PTA puts into supporting our kids on so many different levels, on raising funds for them and creating activities for them, and supporting them in the classroom, outside the classroom. So because of all these things, the relationship between the board and the PTA needs to be incredibly strong. And I think it needs to be stronger even than it's been. I think it needs to continue to grow, to be strong so that the board can get a clearer sense of what's actually happening in the buildings, in the hearts and minds of the students that are in the buildings, what's working and what's not.
Thank you. Question 9. Describe the Board of Ed's relationship with the superintendent, and how do you or would you approach that relationship? Mr. Hartman.
Thank you. As many may know, we recently appointed Dr. Cox as our new superintendent starting July 1st of this coming year. So our role with Dr. Cox is he reports directly to us. He's our only person in this district who has a direct line to the board itself. So really, we set our goals of what we want to happen this year at 50,000 foot level. He puts those goals into actions. We display those to the community, and we put those action plans into place. So certainly, as we're hearing things, every board member has a direct line of communication to the superintendent himself and needs to provide that constant feedback of what are they hearing, what's going on, what's room for improvement. And certainly we get weekly updates of what's going on in our schools. We have our board meetings, which we get updates, which we share with the whole community itself. We have our executive sessions where we discuss confidential matters. So those updates happen on a regular basis. We do a mid-year review with the superintendent to make sure that our goals are being met, make any mid-year changes and corrections. And at the end of the year, we provide the superintendent with an evaluation of what's working, what's not working, and what our hopes are for the next year coming forward. Thank you.
Mr. Yurkovich, your turn.
Yes, I'd like to say that the relationship with the superintendent and the board is one of checks and balances. I mean, the board is here to help facilitate what we all want as a community to happen, and ultimately the superintendent is there to execute certain things, and we need to keep a positive, open dialogue between everyone, and evaluate and make sure that we're getting the best for our district.
Mr. Varghese.
Yeah, so it's the job of the board to be able to work with the superintendent. The superintendent is really the one direct report to the board. So the board, like we mentioned earlier, is the one that creates these broad stroke goals for what it is that the community desires to see happen in the district going forward. And then the superintendent is the one who actually implements them. So that actually needs to be this close working relationship where there's constant feedback going back and forth. That's the reason why the evaluation part of it is so important. That's the reason why cultivating clear communication between the board and the superintendent is so important. I'm really excited and grateful that we're bringing on Dr. Cox, who's just so talented and so authentic and so knowledgeable. So the board needs to rely on the superintendent's knowledge, but at the same time, hold them accountable and make sure that they're implementing the board's goals in a way that's most effective and most efficient.
Ms. Fidalgo.
Thank you. I think, again, the relationship with regards to the board, with the superintendent and the board is very important. The line of communication, as many of you all said, is crucial. I think Dr. Cox, I did speak with him myself. I know him to be a very, sorry. I know him to be he's a great person and also very informed. He's created so many wonderful opportunities. I've been learning more and more about all these creative pathways that they're introducing. And I think it'll be wonderful to be able to work with someone with so much knowledge with regards to the curriculum. And the board, like I said, is going to be bringing the input of the community and set goals so that then the superintendent can implement those goals. And I think Dr. Cox will be a great collaborator with the board members. Thank you.
Question 10, describe the Board of Ed's relationship with teachers and how would you cultivate that relationship? Mr. Yurkovich.
The Board of Education's role with teachers, I just think that we need to make sure that we're all on the same page at all times. I mean, obviously the teachers are going to teach and the board is going to set policy, but we just need open lines of communications at all time and to make sure that our shared vision and our shared goals are working in the best interests of the students in the district.
Mr. Varghese.
So, we all know that Commack is really, it's a premier district on Long Island, and a huge part of the reason for that is because of the exceptional teachers that we have, the exceptional teachers that we draw to this district. I had the opportunity to walk through some of the buildings in the last couple of weeks. The board was just making building visits in recent weeks, and just seeing these teachers in action, seeing their creativity, seeing their genuine care for these students is really remarkable. So I think it's important that the board help the teachers feel supported, at the same time help them have the supports they need to carry out the goals of the district, the goals that the board has set forth that are being implemented through the superintendent. So there's this relationship between supporting them and giving them what they need to succeed, while also desiring to bring about the type of accountability that also helps cultivate the educational environment that the district is known for.
Thank you. Ms. Fidalgo.
I think the teachers are extremely important, and the relationship obviously between the board and the teachers is extremely important and crucial to our children's education. I can speak for my own children. My daughter just recently told me that she is graduating a full year early because of the education and the teachers and the staff and all the programs and college courses that this district has to offer. So I think that the teachers are wonderful, and I'm blessed to have had my children in this district and be able to have these teachers, which have allowed my children, who are very different, to both excel. And again, open line of communication always, so that way the goals that are being presented are being obtained, and supporting them obviously at all costs to make sure that the children and the students, the children and the teachers are benefiting.
Mr. Hartman.
Thank you. So really the one thing we have in common is we want a positive outcome for all students to succeed in the end. That's the goal of the teachers, and that's the goal of students, and that's the goal of the board itself. So we all want to be working for that one common goal, which is to make sure our students are coming out to do the best that they can. As Mr. Verghese says, we've been through many of the schools right now, and just seeing some of that authentic learning that they're doing day in and day out, seeing the movement in the arts, seeing some of the music concerts, seeing all the variety of things that we offer in our district is simply amazing of what they do day in and day out. It's very challenging working with students and all the different needs, and they're all up for the task. They're all engaged. They're all happy to be there. It's such a great environment to see what they do and how much they're having each student succeed in day in and day out basis. We want each children to succeed. Each child is different. Each child has their own needs. We need to make sure in the end that they're all going to come out with a very positive culture from Commack in the end.
Thank you. PTA, including SEPTA, hears from members about their specific struggles with obtaining special education services from the district for their children. We know many families feel like they have to fight the district in order to obtain services for their child. What can the district do to better support these families and students? Mr. Verghese.
The special education population in our district is really, they're a treasure to our district. And I really feel like we need to take every possible step to make sure that they feel supported. Now, to hear that that parents are advocating for their children, there's goodness and there's beauty in that, but it shouldn't be something that requires a lot of obstacles. It shouldn't be something that is difficult or frustrating. So I think that to hear that the PTA certainly has the insights, and SEPTA has the insights to know where some of the pain points are that are causing the obstacles to advocating for what it is that their child needs, getting the services that their child needs. So I think that we would need to examine where any of those pain points are, where some of those stressors are that are preventing a free flow of information from parents to the district to make sure that every student at every level is getting the support that they need.
Ms. Fidalgo.
Sorry. I think working with the SEPTA and special education program is extremely important so that we can understand where they are, where they need assistance. Recommendations on how we can improve or enhance the special education program is very important. I did recently speak to a special education parent at length. And I think they have a very big concern with regards to the mental health of the special education community. And I know that there's different opportunities that are going to be available for the special education students in regards to mental health. And I'm just hoping that we can work with them to get them whatever it is that they need for them to succeed. I think it's important for that special education community also to have programs which I know already exist in our district, but just make sure that they're promoting programs that will allow them to function outside in the real world once they leave the Commack district. So I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to support them if I'm elected. Thank you.
Mr. Hartman.
People move to Commack for special education, specifically. Special education, when I started, was at 12% of the population. It's now at 21% of our population, and that's a good portion of our budget because they come to Commack for all the greatness that we have in our special education department itself. We've been making many shifts in our special education department over the past couple of years. We've heard of some of the issues. The board has taken very good attention to it. In fact, at a prior board meeting earlier this year, we went through all the different facets of what special education is. So the whole community, not just the board, understands the whole gamut of the pictures itself. And one of the things I was doing during this weekend was speaking to a community member regarding her difficulties in special education itself. And one of the things that I found is that we as a district are still outsourcing some of the activities to other areas. As a board member, I find that we can actually look at these areas and say, can we basically bring these people back to our home district so they can learn and be in an environment in Commack all together with their friends? Thank you.
Mr. Yurkovich.
Repeat the question.
Sure. PTA, including SEPTA, hears from members about their specific struggles with obtaining special education services from the district for their children. We know many families feel like they have to fight the district in order to obtain services for their child. What can the district do to better support these families and students?
Well, if the problem is that the parents are fighting for services, then obviously there's a flaw in the protocols involved. So we should probably re-examine whatever protocols are involved in placing children in the special needs classes, and maybe we could find a way to make sure that each child who has special needs is given the things that the tools that they need to succeed.
Thank you. Question 12. What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of Commack's special education program? Ms. Fidalgo.
Thank you. I think it speaks back to what I've said before with regards, I guess, to the mental health. I know that the people that I've been speaking to with regards to the special education department, I think that their population is definitely struggling more than maybe some of the regular education children. So I think that that's probably the priority with regards to that, with regards to that population.
Mr. Hartman.
So we have a thriving special education program here in Commack, but as always, there's room for improvement. One of the areas I mentioned before is whereby we're taking students that may have a special need or special services, and we're basically placing them in another program in another district. That costs the district an extreme amount of money. It also may cause them like emotional distress to the child that they're not being in their community itself. So we as a board need to work together with our administrators to bring back some of those students into our district, so whereby they're getting the services in an area that will help them thrive and learn on an ongoing basis. Certainly that's one of the areas of improvement, but we have all sorts of different challenges from K through 12. We need to look at all of them holistically and find areas to constantly improve and work with them to make sure they're getting the services they need in a timely fashion.
Mr. Yurkovich.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sure.
Wait, it's a new question, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of Commack's special education program?
Well, the strengths are the great success. I mean, I myself have a close family relative who has been through the Commack program, and he went on to be very successful. I mean, he's much older now, and the education that he was provided in our programs here in Commack really just brought him to become a wonderful adult and fulfill all of his potential. And as far as the weaknesses, I really would need to be more educated by the parents themselves about what the problems are here.
Mr. Varghese.
Yeah, so as far as strengths of the special education program, I would say from the outset, there's just the high quality of the program itself. As was said earlier, there are people that move into the district because of the quality of the program. And in large part, that quality comes through the high quality instructors that we have, the high quality services. So it's not just that the programs are good, but we actually attract high quality instructors and services to carry out those services, special ed services for the kids. So the success really is telling of how good the program is. As far as weaknesses go, we actually touched on it earlier. I have heard too many stories of obstacles and difficulties in the process as people are advocating for their kids. So I feel like there are some pain points that we do need to take a look at there to see how that process can become a little bit smoother. And then as Mr. Hartman said, I think we do outsource certain programs that we could bring back in-house to create a little bit more continuity in the special ed program, which would be an improvement.
Thank you. Question 13. What role do you believe a Board of Ed trustee has in implementing or supporting social emotional learning, if any? Mr. Hartman.
So certainly since the pandemic and beyond, social emotional well-being has been really important to all our students and to our faculty and staff, right? This pandemic has affected everyone on an individual basis, which we can't even touch upon. So as a district, we've been putting social workers into place. We've been offering extra tutoring on various levels for all areas from K through 12 to make sure the students are basically going back to the academic level. We offered summer camps this year, which we never offered in the past, whereby they were really focused on raising the academic bar for all our students all together. So we really need to look with our guidance counselors, with our staff. Our staff has been trained on looking at some of these key things. What's going on with the student? What can I do to make sure that they're engaged on a day in and day out basis to make sure that there's any problems or situations that are occurring, they're taken care of in a very quick fashion themselves. We're also working with our students themselves so they can identify some issues and where they can go to help their friends get some of those benefits. Thank you.
Mr. Yurkovich,
Could you repeat the question?
what role do you believe a Board of Ed trustee has in implementing and supporting social emotional learning, if any?
I mean, the board really should be advocating to make sure that all of our students are up to level, and especially over the past 2 years, I know many students have fallen behind. I mean, my son is in the first grade, and I see it that we need to bring these kids up to the level that they need to be at due to the lost time in their formative years. So I would just say to push the process of getting everyone up to speed and where they need to be, so that we can continue forward.
Mr. Varghese,
So we're whole people, right? We're intellectual, so there's academics, but then human beings are social and they're emotional. And I think that all of those things are what make us human, and all of those things need to be cared for our students who are spending a huge chunk of their day in our buildings. So there's so many things that can be done that we've already started to do that we want to do more of, which is things like increasing professional development for our teachers, increasing guidance counselors, so that there's a higher level of awareness of what it is that the students need, so that they can anticipate some of those needs and try to meet them as they go. I think also, just given the last 2 years that we've had, cultivating more connections between students, healthy connections between students. So even some of the things coming up, like the Multicultural Festival that's coming up on Saturday, the camps that we've been able to put together for the summers, these are all ways that we help bring students together and re-engage with one another with healthy social and emotional levels.
Ms. Fidalgo,
With regards to the social and emotional learning, obviously, first and foremost, I think we need to listen to the children and hear their voices, to see what it is that they're really asking and needing from us. The most important aspect, obviously, of a child's mental health is, creating an environment that supports them intellectually, socially, emotionally. I think the teachers have always done a great job of teaching our children to be kind and respectful, but I think it would benefit the district to be proactive with regards to maybe anti-bullying programs, different empowerment, I think, confidence building, either programs or assemblies, or even clubs. I'm sure that there's a bunch of clubs that do support this, but again, maybe something that was created that would allow the whole student body to be involved. And again, I think something that would allow to build the children's confidence would definitely support their social and emotional well-being.
thank you. Question 14. What role do you believe a Board of Ed trustee has in curriculum development or modification, if any? Mr. Yurkovich.
Well, the role of the board is more, as I understand it, to set policies. So they're not, the board itself is not here to modify the curriculum. The board is here to set up committees, to go over budgets, to do these types of things. So I don't think that it has a huge role in the curriculum itself. It's more of a facilitator in the process.
Mr. Varghese.
Yeah, the curriculum itself is in large part dictated by the state, also written locally by our administrators. They're the experts in the field. So the board, it doesn't write curriculum per se, it doesn't modify curriculum per se, but the board does serve as a listening ear and a liaison to the community. So the ways in which curriculum is being taught and what's effective and what's not effective, what's working best, that's causing the greatest amount of growth, and what is maybe less effective, those are the areas where the board can play a really important role as it relates to curriculum. Is the curriculum being communicated in a way that is most effective to help the kids learn? So the board certainly plays a role in that, listening to the administration, offering input. But as I said, the administrators are the experts, and they're the ones who write the curriculum, not the board per se.
Ms. Fidalgo.
Just to obviously mimic what most people are saying, is my understanding that the board does not dictate curriculum, but they obviously any curriculum that's implemented should be developmentally appropriate and always be inclusive of all children. But ultimately, we're a little bit more of a liaison between the community, but we're not necessarily setting forth the curriculum that's going to be, implemented. It's my understanding, I guess, that it is I guess, passed by the board. Again, this is something I've been doing a little bit of research on, but it's not something necessarily that we're doing ourselves, but again, leaving it to the professionals. Dr. Cox, again, after speaking with him a few times, they can, he's essential in terms of making sure that there's a team of teachers and faculty that create the best possible curriculum for our district. With regards to the implementation of information from the state, I think it's important, just like anything else, that Commack adapts the curriculum to meet the needs of their students.
Mr. Hartman.
So the board's role in curriculum is really to understand what's going on. We are not the educators. We have our administration. So Dr. Cox in his previous role was providing a curriculum oversight team where they're reviewing all curriculum K through 12 to understand what's going on. But I remember being on the board very early on, and there were questions. Maybe someone remember the Common Core implementation many years ago. What was going on? And I was struggling to understand, what is this regrouping? What is all the different things? So we had actually those educators come into a board meeting to educate us and educate the district around what is Common Core, what is the practice, what's going on there. So we were actually knowledgeable and providing that information not to us but to the whole community itself. We've also done in the past, which I think was great, is we've done certain focus groups on curriculum and what different parts are. That allows the parents to understand, ask questions, and really get a deeper knowledge of what is going on with their students day in and day out.
Thank you. Question 15. Commack is a diverse community, including people of varied disabilities, religions, cultures, races, gender identities, and sexual orientations. As a school board member, how would you ensure Commack supports the success and acceptance of all students? Mr. Verghese.
That is a great question, and one that's pretty near to my heart. I feel like the most important thing we can do is create a culture in which people are willing to truly see one another and be shaped by one another. So there's great beauty in the tapestry of how different we all are from one another in ethnicity, race, gender identity, all the different things that you mentioned. And to be able to approach someone else with an understanding that I can be shaped by you, you can be shaped by me, we can learn from one another and grow together is an amazing and beautiful thing. And I love the diversity that we have in our district. So I think creating a culture in our schools that helps our kids value perspectives that are different than theirs, value people who are different than them, and not just appreciate them from a distance, but actually come up close and be willing to be shaped by people who are different than us. Creating that culture in our schools, I think, serves our kids well. So I'm excited to continue to build that.
Ms. Fidalgo.
Thank you. I think as a child of parents who were not born in this country, I'm aware of, I guess, some of the difficulties that sometimes children that have parents that weren't born in this country face. It is not always easy, but I think it is important to make sure that children understand that there are different cultures, different values, different traditions. I think it's very important that kids engage with other children to learn about what it is that they may do within their, again, religion or tradition or culture. It's very, very important. I would have loved to have been able to be at the multicultural day, Mr. Verghese, actually. I was actually thinking that I would have loved to invite the Portuguese folk dance group to attend and participate. Unfortunately, I have a family event that day, so I won't be able to be there. But again, I think it's important because I think people feel more connected when they understand where other people, who other people are. I know just recently, I have 10 seconds, one of my friends said that her son made first communion, and he happened to ask a friend of his, when do you make first communion? And he said, I don't have first communion. He's like, oh, well, that you're not going to be able to see this, but yeah, so they basically turned it into a conversation of how, what tradition they had in their family with their religion and what they participated in. So it was great to see that the children really just.
Time's up, Mrs. Fildago.
Thank you.
Sorry. Mr.
Yeah,
Hartman.
no, that's okay. I
All
understand.
right. I think kind of bringing all together, people said really creating that culture of respect for one's ethnicity, their background, who they really are. Kids at a young age need to understand that this is what's going on in the culture and be respectful. That's really what it comes down to, having respect for what they are. They may not fully agree ever in life. That's going to be something that happens. Even as a board member, you need to create that culture of respect, understanding, and mutual cooperation, understand what's going on there with them. I am looking forward to the multicultural event. I think it's really key that it's K-5 because those children really have a great deal of diversity going on that they need to be brought together to understand what are the different cultures and facets. We do that in our curriculum day in and day out, but I'm really looking forward to that. But as a board member, another important thing that we do on an annual basis is our review of the code of conduct. That document, which we review and update on an annual basis, which is basically approved at the board meeting, is essential for basically a lot of the things that go on in our district to make sure that each child is treated with an earnest of respect for one another.
Mr. Yurkovich.
Could you repeat the question?
Commack is a diverse community including people of varied disabilities, religions, cultures, races, gender identities, and sexual orientations. As a school board member, how would you ensure Commack supports the success and acceptance of all students?
Well, I just think it comes down to respect and making sure that we all respect one another, despite our differences, despite our differences in culture, despite our differences in opinion. I grew up, I said it before, in a family of people who were not born in this country. I grew up in a bilingual household. I hold my culture very near and dear to my heart to this day. And I look forward to sharing that with others. And I enjoy learning about other cultures. So I just think that, we should all have respect for one another despite our differences. And that's very important. It's very important to me.
Okay. Question 16. We've heard this hot topic bubble up over the past 2 years. Please define CRT and its role in our schools, if any. Ms. Fidalgo?
I think that obviously, like you said, it's a hot topic. I don't think the critical race theory is being taught in our schools. It was clearly stated at a meeting, I believe last year. I don't believe in any type of curriculum that's going to divide people. I think it's really about uniting, and that's really what's most important. But again, with regards to critical race theory in our schools, we've had this discussion in meetings. I've heard everyone say it. It's not being taught here. We really just want to be able to respect everyone and hear other people's opinions, value them. And again, I don't think it's something that's an issue in our school at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Hartman?
Similar to Ms. Fidalgo said, so we had that June board meeting where there was some inklings regarding critical race theory, and critical race theory is not occurring in Commack. It is something that is out there, but certainly our teachers, our staff, our administrators are not engaged in any kind of critical race theory is doing. But however, we are creating, as we mentioned before, this culture of respect and earning respect for one another, to have this understanding of what deeply motivates one another, how we can make those constant connections of being together as a Commack community, all united together. So certainly that is where we really need to focus on our point going forward, is really continue to be united and work together what's best for our students, our faculty, and the community as a whole.
Mr. Yurkovich?
I don't think you can really define critical race theory, to be honest with me, because I've heard so many different definitions from different people. I mean, it apparently it's not being taught in our schools. I did watch that meeting that was referenced before, but I don't think it really has a role in our schools, because it seems more divisive than inclusive to me. So if there's a divisive method of teaching something, then that's probably not the best practice. So if your goal is for all of us to live together and understand each other, this is probably not the method that you should be using to teach.
Mr. Varghese.
So CRT, I think, as has already been said, I mean, for one thing, it's hard to define as one single thing because it's a relatively complex and nuanced graduate level curriculum. So it's not being taught in our schools. I'm not sure that it's being taught in any K through 12 environment just due to its complexity and its nuance. People's concern about it speaks to a larger issue that has kind of been addressed already by some of the others who have spoken, which is that everyone is seeking to cultivate an educational environment where we are understanding one another and we're learning from one another, including all of the things that make us unique, including all of the stories that each ethnicity carries in their own way. So whether you're an Indian immigrant like me or an immigrant from somewhere else, every ethnicity has a story, and it's valuable for us to be able to learn that from one another and be shaped by it.
Thank you. Question 17. In the event of a state mandate, for example, with respect to wearing masks and or requiring vaccines for school students, what do you see your role as a Board of Ed trustee in response? Mr. Hartman.
So certainly when the mandates came through, we were the leaders out there in New York State in terms of what we think was best for our kids and our students themselves. We wrote letters. We joined together other districts out there to basically advocate for what we think is best for our students itself. So if there's a mandate regarding some of those issues, we need to advocate to our local legislators. Been in contact with both senators, both assemblymen in terms of things that are going on. As of right now, none of those bills regarding any kind of vaccination are on the board, right? There's other areas that we're seeing that are going on there regarding SAPO and stuff that we've taken a close look at what's going on there. But certainly as a district in terms of mandates, we need to closely review those mandates, speak to them with the legal team, speaking to the community. And as a board, we need to come together to understand what are the effect of those mandates to the students and the community as a whole.
Mr. Yurkovich.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say that we're here to educate, not to give medical advice. And obviously, the way you frame the question is more about if it was a law or a mandate, as you said. And I would encourage policies that allow our district the maximum amount of choice within the law of the state. Vaccine requirements in the workplace were a very divisive issue itself. So I think that I'm very pro-choice when it comes to all of these things. I think that each family's needs and private medical information and requirements are their own business, and it's not ours. And of course, in regard to the mask, it's the same thing. If it's not a written law, I would encourage policies that give us choice, that give our parents, our students choice.
Mr. Varghese.
Yeah, so, as has already been said, the vaccine mandate in and of itself is kind of a hypothetical that's a little hard to address since it's not really on the table per se. But broadly speaking, I think this speaks to an issue that we've touched on a little bit earlier as it relates to state mandates. So if there's a state mandate in place, such as it relates to masks, as there has been in the past, we're obligated to follow those mandates. Now, that said, I would encourage community members who take issue with that mandate to use their voice and to advocate to the people who have the power to change that mandate if it's a state mandate. So that would be advocating to your state legislators, going to Albany, calling your assemblymen, calling your state senators to bring about those changes. But when there's a state mandate in place, of course, I believe that we have to follow state mandates and that we do need to trust the science that's out there. But if we have a position that's different than what the state says, we should advocate for it.
Ms. Fidalgo.
Thank you. I'm grateful that I've been able to advocate, as Mr. Hartman and everyone is saying, with parents and across the state, advocating so that we do continue to have a choice. Reaching out to legislators and senators and assemblymen and our governor for the last year has been a very important piece of what I've done. So again, we're all hopeful that this will not become a mandate. A mandate, I mean, technically it should really become a law. A mandate is something that it's not a law, but I think it would be important. I think that the district as a whole, it is important to implement whatever policy we can with regards to having, local control. But again, I think advocating with our government, again, with the legislators, the senators, the assemblymen, seeing what bills are coming out, which ones are moving forward, whether there's a Senate bill, an assembly bill, they have to be matching. So again, definitely going out to your legislators, ensuring that there's no possibility of a mandate so we can keep our children in the public education system.
Thank you. Question 18, final question. What are your hopes for the future of this school district, and how would your aspirations help our students? Mr. Yurkovich. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Mr. Yurkovich.
That was the first time I did it. Give me a break. All right. My hopes for the district are really just to continue on the path of academic excellence that we have a history of. I mean, I moved to this district actually before I had children, with having children in mind, because of the reputation it holds. So I'd like to help contribute to just continuing the momentum forward and upward and beyond, doing what's best for our children. And I think that this is a wonderful district, and we can just keep going.
Mr. Varghese.
So I'm feeling very encouraged that there's good things ahead. And I would say when I think about hopes for the district, it really is that we continue to create and grow the opportunities for every student in the district. So we've talked about so many different things today as it relates to the uniqueness of our students, from special needs to ethnicity and race and different levels of academics and social and emotional. My hope is that we would grow in really seeing every student for who they are and what it is that they need, and continuing to lead the way on Long Island on how we can meet those needs in unique and creative ways. So that's why I'm grateful for all of the amazing things that are happening with our teachers, through our administration, to, like I said, such creativity that I saw in the buildings that I was in these past couple of weeks. And I think continuing to see what these students need and continuing to meet those needs in unique ways and creative ways going forward, that's really my hope for the future. That's why I think that the best days lie ahead.
Ms. Fidalgo.
Thank you. I think that the school district, obviously, I've had a very good experience with my children and with my son that's currently in the district. I've been very fortunate. Again, the fact that my daughter is graduating a year early is just credit, obviously, to the programs and classes and education that she received from this district. I guess what I'd like to see implemented is, I guess, with regards to the board meetings and transparency between the parents and the community, and obviously the district. I think it's very important that people are acknowledged, respected, listened to. I would love to, again, see a little bit more of an open dialogue with regards to the meeting, because I think it'll only help for people to understand where people are coming from. And with regards to the students, again, as many of you are saying, it's very important that we address all the needs of the students, whether it become to their social emotional learning, whether it comes to their culture or their education. I think that it's very important that we make sure that everyone is included in the conversation.
Mr. Hartman.
Thank you. I'd like to look to continue to grow our programs K through 12. Specifically, our vision needs to start with Dr. Cox. He is our new superintendent, and as a board, we need to be working with him to ensure those programs grow in K through 12. Some examples I want to look at again: where can we look at our middle school programs? What electives are we taking? Where can we grow there? Where are alternative programs, as mentioned, our Cisco networking? What's going on in BOCES? Can we bring in those programs here back here as well? I also mentioned previously the Marion Call property. I like to see some authentic learning whereby people are coming to the farm and learning some things about the farm itself and some farming. And we also bring in people from other districts to the farm, so thereby our students can learn and develop the culture of what's going on there in this different districts, so they can work together and create this kind of synergy throughout Long Island itself. I also like to bring back focus groups. Focus groups was a key thing that we had before the pandemic. I want to make sure they come back whereby we're gaining community feedback, and it kind of shapes our minds of what's going on for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final question. So now I will invite the candidates to give closing remarks. Mr. Varghese, you have 2 minutes.
So once again, I really am grateful for this opportunity, the time to be able to just chat a little bit and talk through some of the things that each of us values. We've talked about so many things today, and when I think about people coming out to vote for a candidate, I sense that one of the most important things is cultivating an engaged community. So I'm so glad for all of the people who are watching today, because that's a huge step in engaging with what it is that's happening in our district. So, what I would love to spend the next 3 years doing, in addition to all of the wonderful things that we've talked about with respect to the programs, is continuing to cultivate that type of transparency and connection. So we've talked about things like forums and focus groups, and I think there are a ton of ideas that we haven't even conceived of yet, of how we could create space to allow for the community to be heard, allow for the needs of every student to be met. The other thing I really want to see continue is the fiscal responsibility that has marked this district for a decade, that taxes have stayed under the tax cap, that we've been able to make these remarkable improvements to the buildings through a bond that's costing the taxpayers nothing. All of that happens through disciplined fiscal planning, long-term fiscal planning. So I think that we serve our students well, we serve our community well, we serve our taxpayers well, when we pay attention to what's working and what's not working, what's efficient and what's not efficient, and plan responsibly. So listen, all of this really is the tip of the iceberg of what makes Commack great. So I'm eager to continue serving this community and to keep growing, and I would consider it an honor to have the vote of anyone who would be willing to do so to allow for me to serve for the next 3 years.
Thank you. Mr. Yurkovich, you have 2 minutes to provide closing remarks.
First, I just want to reiterate that I thank the PTA for hosting this. I welcome the discussion between all the candidates. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be on the ballot and provide a choice for members of the community. I would just like to say that if you remember anything about me, it's that I'm not here to push the goals of any organization or my career or anything else. I'm here to volunteer my time for my community. I want to do my part. I want to help out. I want to bring a different perspective. I want to put the students and families of Commack first. I'd like to also maybe give a little representation to the parents of younger children, being that my children are very young. And I just like to leave you with one more quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said, let's build bridges, not walls. And I think that as a blue collar worker, that speaks to me in a lot of ways, and also speaks to what we're trying to do here. So I'd like to build bridges between all of us, between the different corners of the community, between the board, the students, the teachers, everybody. And I'd just like to thank everyone for taking their time again tonight. Nicole, Diana, Steve, Pauline, Justin, thank you very much. And I just wish everyone the best and hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hartman, you have 2 minutes to provide closing remarks. You're on mute. You're on mute, Mr. Hartman.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Thank you. So again, as everyone said, I want to thank the PTA for this grateful event tonight, right? I know that you've gained insight to my background, my character, my strengths, and why I'm the best candidate for trustee. I have the most in-depth experience in fiscal governance, policy making, advocacy work. I will continue to advocate for all children and continue to engage our community through events, focus groups, and reaching out to our community at large. As a board member, here are some of our successes during my years on the board. We infused STEM into all our schools. We put Project Lead the Way in the high school. We had a $6 million construction bond, which resulted in no tax increase to the community. We have K-5 small classrooms. We've added new programs for enrichment for all, movement of the arts. This year, we are now a Blue Ribbon High School. We also now launched the IB career curriculum in the high school. We have the Marion Call property. We're making sure all our students are college and career ready. We've engaged in communications incentives such as Being the Know. And we're certainly, as mentioned before, very fiscally responsible. A board member needs to be the person who can show respect and discuss in a logical and professional manner. A board member should have the knowledge to review district policies and guidelines and follow them as well. A board member must be seen as a leader, an advocate for education, both during a board meeting and outside events. A board member must represent the whole community. I agree with the PTA's mission to make every children's potential reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. These goals are what a board member must have. Their values include collaboration with the community, commitment to excellence, especially accountability for one's own actions and obligations, and respect for others in the face of differences is something that I hold very dear to my core being. I've always worked on creating working relationships with every member of a community and our board via trust and understanding. This community is a very proud district, and I'll continue to ensure that we are Commack proud. We are a community with a united voice. Please support the budget and vote for me, Steve Hartman, on May 17th. Thank you, everyone.
Ms. Fidalgo, you have 2 minutes to provide closing remarks.
Thank you. What I've realized in the last week is how change is needed in this community. We need to build trust and promote healthy communication between the Board of Education, administration, parents. If elected, I will do my best to ensure that we stay fiscally responsible with taxpayers' money and state funding. Support initiatives that allow children to feel socially and emotionally secure while supporting and continuing the exemplary education that this district has provided. My goal is to try to unite our community and make this community more respectful towards others, to create a more welcoming environment, to allow all parents to be heard, respected, and accepted, to educate parents so they may be well informed, which will help promote transparency and trust, promote ideas that can improve communication between the parents and the schools, but most importantly, remind all parents that we all want what's best for our children. Community members that are setting an example on social media of judging a person based on snippets that they see or something they've heard, judging people without ever really listening or reaching out to them and having a conversation. Some community members seem to think that inclusion only applies when speaking of their own perspective instead of uniting people, which I think is extremely important. Being able to listen, really listen to others' opinions, ideas, perspectives, and respectfully agree or disagree is, I think, one of my best qualities and one that I think will make me a good board member. We all don't need to have the same beliefs, but we should be all respectful towards each other and their beliefs and come together for a common purpose, which is our children. I would like to address a letter dated April 18th, sent out to community teachers, which discussed the view and actions of potential candidates. I did submit a petition on April 29th, so I can only assume that the letter is not a reflection of my beliefs or actions. I hope that you understand who I am and what I hope to achieve as a board trustee. For those who would like to speak to me, I will invite you to a meet and greet tomorrow at 6 at Mario's. And if I do not get another opportunity to see or speak to you before May 17th, I hope that I have earned your vote. Please vote May 17th for Pauline Fidalgo, Board of Education, someone who wants to advocate for all children and unite our wonderful Commack community. Thank you.
Thank you to our candidates for joining us, and thank you to the community for watching. Please go out and vote May 17th. Good night.